Okay, welcome to class 125 in our ongoing series on the Shmon Esrei and the Amidah. Okay, so last week we were discussing if you should even say the whole Shmon Esrei. That we saw the opinion of Rabbi Yeshua that you should say Havinenu. It's too much. I can't ask people. I mean, we'll have to talk about why we don't do this nowadays, but or we did. Somebody said they do say Havinenu, but why we don't do more of this? That it's too much. I think most people would agree. Many people would agree. It's a little bit too much to dub in 3 times Shmon Esrei. It's just a lot, and people don't focus. And Rabbi Yeshua says, you know what? You're right. The Shmon Esrei is only for the Yechidei Skula, for the people of great intensity and piety. And Rabbi Kiva says it depends. So we didn't go through Havinenu. So I want to share that a little bit to go through that what that bracha is and discuss it for a couple minutes. So let me share my screen and okay. So it's here we go. I hope okay. Bracha 29a. So here the Gemara says it is. Okay. So the Gemara wants to know, okay, what do you have to say? Rabbi Yeshua Mer Me'ein Shmon Esrei. A person shouldn't say the Shmon Esrei every day. That's too much. You say like me'ain a little bit shvashi. Ma me'ain Shmon Esrei. So Rav Amar me'ain kol bracha bracha. So Rav says, I don't have the I don't
You
know.
have your conversation elsewhere.
I'm sorry. Rav says that you have to say every bracha a shortened version. You do say 18 brachot or eventually 19 brachot, everyone's short version. So you cut the Shmon Esrei in half. I don't know. But Shmuel says no. Shmuel says, and I'll just go through it quickly. You'll notice basically every 3 words is another one of the middle brachot, of the middle 12 and 13 brachot. So we start Havinenu Hashem Elokeinu Ladat, that's Atachonein Ladam Dat, Umolet Levavenu, that shape our heart, right? Hashiva, what's that bracha? Hashiva Avinu l'Torah, bring us close to your Torah. Tislach lanu, that's the bracha of slach lanu. Tislach lanu liot geulim, that's go aleinu, go Yisrael. In 4 words, you got 2 brachot. V'rachbeinu mimachovenu, send us far away from our diseases. That's rifaenu. Dashnenu binot artzacha. That's Barech Aleinu Atashana Hazot, make it a beautiful year. Nifotzenu, gather us from the 4 corners of the earth. That's of course the Kabbalah Shofar Gadol B'Sanes L'Gabeitz Kalitenu, etc. You can see Al Rishaim. That's V'Lam Shlim V'Yismechut Tzadikim. The joy, the fire shall rejoice. Al Tzadikim V'Inyani Recha V'Latz V'Yishalayim Ircha B'Rachamim Tashuv. Tzmichat Karen Tavid Avdecha. That's at Samach David and. That's like Shomei Tfilah, and then we end Baruch Hashem Shomei Tfilah. So that's the entire middle section of the Shmon Esrei, and that's what Rabbi Yeshua says a Jew should be saying pretty much every day. That 99% of the Jewish population should not be davening, or I don't know, maybe he says 100% of the Jewish population. Maybe it's Rabbi Kiva who says it's 99%. Rabbi Kiva says if you're the type of person who can focus, say the whole Shmon Esrei. If not, say Havinenu. Rabbi Gamliel
That's the opinion of Shmuel. You said Rabbi, you didn't attribute it correctly to Shmuel.
Yes, no, Shmuel, what the Gemara says, the Mishnah says you should make ain Shmon Esrei, like the Shmon Esrei. So Rav and Shmuel are the generation after the Mishnah. Rav and Shmuel are living in Babel. So they debate, what did the Mishnah mean when it says you should say like the Shmon Esrei, not the Shmon Esrei. So Rav says you have to say 13, you have to say the 3, everybody agrees you have to say the 3 brachot at the beginning, 3 brachot at the end. That there's no dispute about. The question is, what do you do for the middle 12 and then eventually 13? By the time of Rav Shmuel, it's 13 brachot in the middle. What do you do? So Rav says you shorten every bracha. You say 13, I don't know exactly how it would work. Just let's say, you'd say, Barech Aleinu at Hashana Azot, Baruch Ata Hashem Mevarech Hashnim. You have to say Baruch Ata Hashem 13 times. In other words, you can't cut out the bracha, you can cut out the words. You just can say maybe the words of Havinenu, but after each one, you would say Havinenu Hashem datat turachecha, Baruch Ata Hashem chonein hadat, Umola levavenu liyiratecha, Baruch Ata Hashem harotzeh b'tshuva, or etc. And Shmuel says no. Shmuel says you only say 1 bracha. You say 3-4 words for each one of the 13 middle brachot, and then you end off as saying Baruch Ata Hashem Shomei Tfilah, and then Tfilah. So that's and it's in the Gemara, and it's a recommended. Not only it's not a b'diavad. It's not like, all right, if I can't daven. I mean, it's a b'diavad in the sense that I can't focus. But the Gemara says it. The Mishnah. This is a lakatchila. This is how we should practice. This is how most Jews should practice. We, of course, obviously, Rabbi Gamliel disagreed. Rabbi Gamliel said we should say everything, but the Gemara does quote it. This is actually quoted in the Shulchan Aruch. I'll just say one more line, and then we'll layit alav Abaye amanda matzei havinenu. Abaye lived 300 years, 200 years later. Rav and Shmuel are the first generation of Amoraim, the first generation of the rabbis of the Gemara, and Abaye is the fourth generation. Rav and Abaye are 3 generations later. So whatever, 100 years later, Abaye would curse those people who said havinenu. Obviously, he didn't like it, and then the Gemara has details about Havinenu. But even by the question is, does it mean he would always curse? You can never say it. So in the Shulchan Aruch, Rav Yosef Karo, I'm not going to go through the whole halachic discussion, but the Shulchan Aruch recommends that you say it in extenuating circumstances. You're traveling, you got an early plane to catch, or you can't concentrate. So like that, I don't know if that's so extenuating. That's like normal. But that's when he says you should say it. And then you look on the commentaries. So many commentaries point out, no, we don't say it ever. We never say it. And the reason they gave, of course, is one of the sad reason we've discussed before. You're supposed to have Havinenu because you can't concentrate, you can't focus. It's too hard to sit there for 3 minutes and say the whole Shemona Esrei focusing every day. It's hard. It is hard, and we all know that it's hard. Maybe for you it's not, but I'm not on that level. So, but for Havinenu, it takes 30 seconds. That you can focus on. It's very easy. 3 words, focus on. And it says, no, we don't focus on anything. Nobody pays attention to anything. So if you're already not having kavanah, so you might as well say the whole thing. So the truth of the matter, I don't really follow that argument because I quoted many times Rav Hutner's clip that I've said many times, but I'll say it again, that it says in the first siman in the Shulchan Aruch, the beginning of the Shulchan Aruch writes, Tov ma'at im kavana meharbe b'li kavana. It's always better to say less with kavana than more without kavana. It's better to say havinenu because you're going to focus than to say the Shemona Esrei you're not going to focus. That's right away, right off the bat in Siman Aleph in the Shulchan Aruch. Rav Hutner, the Rosh Yeshiva in Chaim Berlin, quipped. They said, "Tov ma'at b'li kavana meharbe b'li kavana." If you're not going to have kavana anyways, better to say a little without kavana than a lot without kavana. In other words, kavana is important. The proper intent's important. So, nonetheless, it would to me make sense that if you don't have kavana, you should for sure say Avinenu. But that's not the standard practice. Although there's definitely room, you don't have to. The standard practice in a community in shul, you're not going to get up in shul, have the chazan, do chazar hashatz and havinenu. But I don't know. It's not the end of the world if you feel you want to say havinenu. I'm not and the Mishnah, many poskim do a lot. I was looking last night, so I saw Rav Reim Cohen. Rav Reim Cohen, I don't know if anybody's heard of him. He's the Rosh Yeshiva, I believe, in Otniel. He learned in it's a major Talmud Chacham in Israel. And he says that he thinks today in our times it's important that people should know they can say Havinenu, because otherwise people get all depressed. You go to school, adults too, but the kids express it more. They don't, davening is really hard, they don't really like it, and it's impossible. So if it makes it too hard, sometimes people give up. So he was writing that maybe we have to tell kids in school, maybe it's okay. So it definitely becomes a little bit easier. It's not such a burden, and they don't dislike it as much. But whatever. But that, and the Shulchan Aruch, Rav Yosef Karo says you can say it if you can't focus. The standard practice is we don't say it, but that's just a fascinating thing to know, that the Shemona Esrei that is so fundamental to our way of life, to an observant Jew 3 times a day, 57, blessings, that it could be that that's really only if you can focus on the whole thing. Of course, what it means, we should try to focus. It's the same reason we've mentioned in the past why when you get married, you have to daven Mariv on the night you get married, right? According to the Gemara, you're not allowed to say Shemona Esrei. You're not allowed to say Shema. Not that you don't have to. You're not allowed to. You're not allowed to say Shema the night you get married, because who do you think you are that you're going to be thinking about God on your wedding night? Give me a break. So The Gemara says Rav Shimon ben Gamliel did it, and a student said to him, Rabbi, you taught us we're not allowed to do this. Rav Shimon said, "You're right. What can I do? I can't help it. I can't go without saying Shema." Okay, if you're Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, you can say Shema. The Gemara there has three things Rav Shimon ben Gamliel did. Three things he taught that he told his students you're not allowed to, and he did all three. One was you're not allowed to shower when you're an avelus. That's a famous halacha. Cannot take a shower when you're in shiva. And Rabbi Gamliel did take a shower, so he said, Rabbi, how can you take a shower? He says, what can I do? I'm an istinus. I'm finicky. I can't live without a shower a day. And where I live, and the world I live in, every posting that I know says that you can take a shower in shiva. We're all istinistas. We're all finicky. To go a week without taking a shower, true man, the Shulchan Aruch, it's not a week. It's 30 days for shloshim. So to tell somebody today, that's insane. Yeah, maybe if you're living 1,800 years ago, you didn't have running water. I get it. But we're all finicky. We're all Rabbi Gamliel. So, but Rabbi Gamliel taught that, and then the mission said his wife died, and he took a shower. I don't know if it was a shower. When we have a shower, he bathed. He went for a bath. It's even more. He said, "What can I do?" And then he sat shiva. He was mekabel tanchumim. He accepted comfort when Tevi was his famous servant. He was a scholar, like, sometimes how the janitor in the shul knows more than the average person. They've been around for 20 years. They talk to the rabbi every day. They know Hilchot Shabbos better than, the average person. So Tevi was a slave, but Rabbi Gamliel really loved him. And he was, as he called it, he was kasher haya. He was a beautiful slave. So when he died, Rabbi Gamliel, I don't know if he sat shiva, complete shiva, but he accepted comfort. So what are you doing? What can I do? Tevi's a wonderful person. And so sometimes rabbis teach things, in other words, and they don't do them. Now, normally that isn't a good idea. Like a rabbi shouldn't give a hashgach in a restaurant and not eat there. I think that's terrible. If a rabbi is going to give a hashgach and he's not going to eat there, that's not a place to be machmir. Oh, it's good enough for you, but that's not good. But okay, these things is not, I understand. But it also means there of course, is a flexibility built into halakha. And like I say, everybody's Rabbi Gamliel today when it comes to showering. When the person is Rahman al in morning, even in Shiva, people, I think, I don't know. I mean, anybody who ever asked me, I tell them, of course, you shouldn't sit there for 10 minutes and it should be a little bit colder. It should be only lukewarm. By the way, that's like Rav Shakta told us, I shower in the 9 days, of course. When I went to Camp Mosheva as a kid, so they tell you can't shower for 9 days. Okay, so I didn't shower for 9 days, except Erev Shabbos. But then I come to Rav Shakter Shir, and Rav Shakter says that Rav Moshe Soloveitchik says, if you want to be machmir, not to shower in the night, it's okay, Erev Tisha B'Av after Chatzot. Erev Tisha B'Av after Chatzot, I can hear a chumrah not to take a shower. But he said, because again, not showering in the 9 days is based on shloshim. It's based on a mourner for 30 days. 9 days is comparable to the 30-day period. So it's comparable. So since the Shulchan Aruch says, when a person dies, a relative dies, you cannot bathe for 30 days, which nobody follows, I hope. And so the 9 days are paralleled on the 30 days. So even more so, the 9 days is less than Shloshim. So Kavachomer. That's what Rav Shakter, Rav Soloveitchik said, of course. So people, I don't know why they don't teach this. I don't know. Has any of your rabbis like taught you this stuff? I don't know. I don't want to say. But that's how I was taught. And to me, that makes, of course, a lot of sense. Okay, but anyways, Havinenu is a beautiful, really, it's a beautiful composition. The Gemara does say you can't say it on Saturday night because of Atachonain. I don't know why that made such a big deal, and even more so, can't say it in the winter. V'tein talamatar. You have to throw on v'tein talamatar, and that's hard. I don't know why that was hard, but that's what the Gemara says. It's a little bit strange. I don't quite get it. But that is what the Gemara says. I don't know. Does any Siddur print it? I think I asked last week. Does the art scroll?
Yes, the Hertz prints it. It's on page 97 in the Hertz, and there are several
very
others.
good. Right. You mentioned you actually say, which is very nice, right? But
yeah, I use it regularly when I'm ill, sometimes for extended periods, whenever it's needed.
Right.
Also, Rabbis Turin and Burlat, who were at Baycrest, it was used there with the patients there, and
right.
Also Rabbi Price approved of it.
So you're saying in Baycrest, Baycrest is a geriatric.
In Baycrest, when Rabbi Turin was there and Rabbi Burlat was there.
Sure.
Yeah, Burlat and Turin. they used it with their patients. Absolutely, and it was not uncommon in other places as well. They say
that's a smart rabbi. Baycrest is a geriatric center, world class here in Toronto. And a lot of people, when they're aging and they can't take care of themselves and they're not well, they if they can get into Baycrest, it's not easy to get into. So that's very smart. It's really a Jewish hospital. I mean, there are non-Jews there too, but it's really it's a Jewish founded hospital, and it's that's very smart. That the chaplains went to Rabbi Berlat and mentioned, and Rabbi Stern was. I assume you're Rabbi Stern from.
Not Rabbi Stern, Rabbi Turin, Rabbi Asher.
Oh, Rabbi Turin, Alav Shalom. Yeah. Rabbi Turin, the big Talmid Chacham. Yeah, of course. I know Rabbi Berlat as well, but yeah. So they used to say Havinenu with all the patients in Bakeritz. That's exactly when the Shulchan Aruch says you should say it. When you're going to have some patient who's whatever to say the Ashma, that's crazy. So yes, and so you have to use your Seiko as as I was always taught. What's the fifth chelik of the Shulchan Aruch? Everybody know the fifth chelik of the Shulchan Aruch. There are only four chalakim. There are only four parts of the Shulchan Aruch, right? The Shulchan Aruch divides four parts, but the fifth part of the Shulchan Aruch is
common sense.
Common sense. There you go. That's what I was taught. The fifth part is common sense. You have to know when to apply what. Okay, let's get back to the Shemona Esrei itself. Okay, we've started with Avot, the first bracha, Elokeinu v'Elohei Avotenu. We discussed last week. We invoke our patriarchs. Everybody has their own approach to God. Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. It's not the same thing. Everybody has their own approach. We're individuals. Interestingly enough, I didn't point this out last week, but we start with Elokeinu. If you're being accurate, it should say Baruch Atah Hashem. Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Eloheinu. He's the God of our patriarchs, and because he's the God of our patriarch, he's our God. We're come from the patriarchs. We say no. We say our God, who is the God of the patriarchs. So it's very. I think it's very simple, but it's very, profound. That it's our relationship with God is much more important than the relationship with our patriarch. Big deal. So yes, we're the descendants of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. It's very nice, but what counts is Eloheinu. What counts is our God, not relying on our patriarch. And the commentaries point that go Aleinu, but go Avotenu. Malkeinu, he's our king. Malkei Avotenu, and the king of our forefathers. What's important, much more important, is what we do, our relationship with God. Of course, then we acknowledge and we get inspiration and teaching from our patriarchs. But we have to start with Avotenu. Now, what happened to our matriarchs? And it's I know you say that, people look at you like a Reformed Jew. Why don't we say? I think in Reform shuls and probably in many conservative shuls today, I don't know, they do say Elohei Sarah, Rivka, Leah Barachel. What's wrong with I don't want to say, I don't even want to say what's wrong with it. I don't want to say it's wrong. It's not our practice, not the traditional practice. I don't think it's not so terrible somebody says it, but why is it not the traditional approach? Do I think really so you want to say we don't want to tamper with Shemona Esrei? That's true, but we do add things. I totally hear that. I think there's really a more fundamental reason.
The first connection was through Abraham and through Yitzchak and through Yaakov.
But it was also through Sarah. Kol asher tomar Sarah shma b'kola.
Yeah, but you are correct. However, they were the Eser Kenegdo.
Yeah, no, but you know what? As Rav Soloveitchik beautifully points out, how many years does Avram outlive Sarah?
Not too many.
Oh, many. 38.
Yeah.
Sarah dies at 127. Avram dies at 175. Avram was 10 years older than Sarah. Avram was 137. 137 to 175, if my math is correct, that's 38 years. 38 years is a pretty long time. What do we know about Avram? Avram is a nobody when Sarah dies. Rav Soloveitchik has his beautiful talk on Sarah that I mentioned when he describes the wonderful why Sarah was 127, right? I mentioned that before. Why did it say Rav Soloveitchik? I listen. You got to go online and listen. It's unbelievably beautiful. Rav Soloveitchik explains, the different stages in life. Sarah was innocent and young her whole life, and she was old and mature her whole life. In other words, she had the proper qualities of an adult, the maturity of an adult as a child, and the innocence of a child as an adult. And when he discusses the whole point of Sarah, of course, he makes Sarah sound more impressive than Abraham, and the Torah says, listen to Sarah, don't let Abraham, Sarah's greater insight. And Rav said, God's covenant was not with Abraham. God's covenant was Abraham and Sarah. And when Sarah dies, that's it. We move on. It's time to go to Yitzchak. Who cares about Abraham? Yeah, so it tells us he married Hagar or Keturah, and they had 6 kids who nobody ever heard of. Like, nothing. Abraham goes off center. So really the question is, when we make a Misha Berach, for someone to say, we mention the mother's name, we don't mention the father. Why don't we mention the father's name? There's nothing to it because of the society we live in. Everybody automatically associates it with feminism and reform. No, I'm asking a very simple question. Why shouldn't we say Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah? You'd ask me, I would say we should. But I don't. I have in our traditional way. Why don't we? So I think it's based on the notion that we're going to see as we go through our tefillot that I mentioned in the past. Our tefillot are rooted after the Torah text. Everything in Judaism comes back to the Torah Shabbat. The Torah Shabbat is much more important. It elaborates on it. But our tefillah, especially, we've discussed, Rav Soloveitchik was very big into, we have no right to pray. We've discussed how the Ramban says tefillah is a tremendous, chesed. I love this Ramban, as you know, that God gives us the opportunity to pray. It's not an obligation to pray. What do you mean? I'm obligated to ask God that I should be successful and healthy and well. It's ridiculous. What do you mean I'm obligated? I want to ask God. God allows me to pray to him. So, but how do we get that allowance? So we discussed last week, Ashrei allows you to daven. It's a matir. So we remember the Gemara has a story that we say, El HaGadol HaGibor V'Nara, and then we stop. Right? We describe God as awesome, great, wonderful, good. So the Gemara has a story. Somebody went on. He's this and that, and for 5 minutes, God 15 and he sat down, and the rabbi said, "Are you finished? Is that enough? What do you mean? That's how you describe God? No, you have to go your entire life. Mima lel K'vod Hashem. Who can say all the greatness of God? Impossible. If you call a billionaire a multimillionaire, that's insulting." It's insulting to say, I don't know, that Warren Buffett is the 10th wealthiest person in the world. No, he's, I don't know, the 3rd wealthiest person. What, that insults someone. So how dare you praise God with 97 praises? So why can we praise God with 3 praises? Because Moshe Rabbeinu did it, because it's written in the Torah. No, so if God told Moshe, write this in the Torah. So God's telling us, the Torah is for us, not for Moshe. So God's telling us, we can say that. So but you hear what I'm coming to? Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov is in the Chumash. That expression is in the Chumash. And therefore, that's what we say. It doesn't say anywhere in the Chumash, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, Elohei Rachel. It's true, God is their God. And we can invoke the matriarchs in other sense. Where does it say? Where in the Chidon Tanakh, anybody in Chidon Tanakh, where does it say Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov?
When Hashem is speaking to Moshe.
Very good. Go on. Excellent.
Down in Mitzrayim, Hashem introduces him to them, to
There
himself.
We go. Yeah, beautiful.
In the
Okay,
snare,
chapter
in
3
the
went
snare,
at the snare, at the
at the
burning bush.
snare.
And Moshe's arguing with God back. He doesn't want to go. So, everything God says, Moshe has a counter argument. So God says go. So Moshe, okay, I'm going to go. They're going to say, who's this God? They're out of your mind. They're going to go to Egypt and say, the God of the Hebrews. What, are you crazy? What am I going to tell them? Mashmi, they're going to want to know. Vayomer Elohim, I am who I am. That's a difficult expression. Kotomar Livnei Israel. This is what you're going to say. I sent you. Kotomar Bnei Israel Hashem Elohei Avotechem. I'm the God of your fathers. Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov. And you notice the vav, right? We don't say Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak. It's so precise. We say, you put the and only in the last one. Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov. So this is where this expression comes from. That gets put into our daily siddur 3 times a day. Now, of course, it's very interesting, because we talked about you have to have geula to tefillah. We say Gal Yisrael and then tefillah. But here we have geula and geula. right? This is the redemption of the Jewish people. Pesach is next week, right? This is the beginning of the Pesach story, right? God says, go to Egypt. I made a promise to Abraham, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You gotta carry through. I'm their God. So that's how we put in our tefillah. But we're talking about Gula. So every day when we say 3 times a day, when we say El Abraham, El Yitzchak, El Yaakov, we should be thinking of the redemption from Egypt. What did we just say? And the lead up to Shmon Esrei was all about the redemption from Egypt. Mitzrayim Galtanu, Mebed Avadim Peditanu, Tzur Yisrael, Goaleinu Hashem redeem us. So that's exactly how we start the Shmon Esrei, Elohei Abraham, El Yitzchak, El Yaakov. So that's why now when I saw this in the Siddur Otzer Tefillah, when I was preparing, he quotes that it's based. He doesn't say that's not why we don't say Elohei Sarah, but he just said that it's based on that pasuk. If I remember, it reminded me of many, many, many years ago, 30 years ago. When David Feldman, Rabbi David Feldman, Alav Shalom, David Feldman is Daniel Feldman's father. I don't know, people know, he was a rabbi of a conservative shul in Teaneck, as a tremendous Talmud Chacham. He wrote the book, Birth Control in Jewish Law, the classic book that Ad Hayom Hazeh, he wrote in the 60s, is the 350 pages on the whole notion of birth control. It's the book to go to. Mark Shapiro always says, he was Orthodox. It was a generation when you had Orthodox people in conservative shuls. And his son is a Rosh Yeshiva in Yeshiva University who knows Kol Torah Kula, Mamish unbelievable, Daniel Feldman. And if I'm not mistaken, I won't go there. Whatever. I think he even davened in his father's shul with Mechitza. I think he was given a head there to daven, if I'm not mistaken, sit in the balcony. But don't quote me on that. But I can ask Rev Daniel. And but anyways, so Mark Shapiro, as you say, had he remained Orthodox, he would be one of the Doli, he would be one of the poskim, because he was a part of a conservative shul. So he was in Toronto once in my father's shul. My father was also an Orthodox rabbi in a conservative shul, and he spoke, and I believe, that's what he was talking about. He was talking about Shmon Esrei, and he mentioned that's why we don't say Elohei Sarah Rivka, Elohei Sarah Rivka B'Leah B'Rachel. Anyways, I just think that's an interesting point that I'm sure we don't normally think of. Okay.
Rabbi?
Yeah.
Ask a question. Looking in the Siddurim more since October 7th, I've taken it upon myself to say the Mishabara for the subject.
Right.
And I've been looking, and I used, as I told you, the new RCA, and only one of the Mishabara has both. And I wondered if
Both what? You mean you're talking for itself? You're talking about after Daphne, say the Misha Barak for the
I use the one that people usually use after raining. I don't know what else.
Right.
I think only the one for the birth of the child have in
Oh, right. Only the birth for the child. Right. That, in other words, right. When we have a birth of a child, we also do it through the mother. I don't think. Listen, in our ksuva, you have sometimes now in ksuvas people mention their mother and their father, and you'd say there are no halachas about these things. Like when we say Misha, it doesn't matter. Obviously, throughout history, we were a patriarchal society. It's like, obviously women were always in the background and stuff. So you're right. Well, and Sahel today, there are many women in Sahel. I don't know about Sahel. How does the bracha?
I know, I try.
It doesn't say men or women. I don't think the highlights fanak and mes fanak and men. Anyways, but okay, but yes, some do, most don't. But this is why we don't say it in Shmon Esrei. That's it. Morris, what do you want to ask?
I just Rabbi Felder Siddur, he mentions a Gemara in Shabbos where he talks about Cheda Egel And the Gemara says that when Moshe davened, his prayers weren't answered until he said, Zachor Avram Yitzchak Yaakov.
Right, but good, right. The Chet Egel, Moshe says, remember the promise to Avram, but it doesn't say Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov. It's not. I don't. It says Zachor Avram Yitzchak Yaakov.
Yeah.
Zachor, right? It's
Then he says when he said the names of the Avot, then his prayers were answered. So that's Rabbi Felder says that's why he used that lashon.
In the Siddur Otzer Tefillah, trust me, I didn't think of that pasuk on my own. Right? It's only when I was looking in the commentaries, he pointed out that Shmot Gim 3:16. Oh, Elohim, there it is. Unbelievable. Okay. And you know what? We read Parshat Shmot 9 weeks ago. I don't know, whenever we read it, 12 weeks ago. How many times do I hear that Parshat? 62 times, whatever. Okay, not quite, but you don't notice it until you study that. But that's the right. Okay. So now we'll continue. I said our tefillah is based on the Torah. So the next word, Abraham, okay, he's our God. We have to have a relationship with God. Then we can evoke our patriarchs, not our matriarchs, but we can have them in mind. You can have them silently. And then we say, the God who's Gadol, who's big, great, Gibor, whatever, powerful, brave, whatever. Norah, awesome. El Elyon. So where does that come from? Where does El Gadol Gibor come from? Norah. Also comes from Moshe.
Devarim, Chumash and Devarim.
Very good. We got great students here. Yes. Okay. Chumash Devarim. So let's take a quick look. And the Chumash Devarim. So Chumash Devarim. Here we go. I'll start here. A famous pasuk. Bata Yisrael. Basically, Sefer Devarim is a pep talk. That's basically what it is. Moshe Rabbeinu giving a pep talk to the Jewish people. Don't mess up like your parents did. That's why the first story in Dvarim is the Chet HaMeraglim, not the Egel, even the Egel was earlier. Don't mess up, and then it gives a pep talk. And although there are like 200 new mitzvot in this, pep talk, the Shema included. But anyway, but over and over, Moshe is preparing them to enter the land of Israel. And he says, what does God want from you? You just have to fear him. Whatever. That's a fascinating pasuk. What do you mean, just have to fear him? And then the Gemara says, here again, Rakva Avotecha, right? God loved our fathers. Here we go again with our patriarchs. He chose them, etc. And then it says, Ki Hashem Elokechem, the Lord your God. He's the God of God, the Lord of the Lords. Egypt had 50,000 gods, but this expression is weird. When we're thinking about it literally, the implication. But I think he's the only God, but he's a God of all a capital G versus a small g. Father, they are named the master of masters, Ha'el, HaGadol, HaGibor, V'Hanara. So here you have the Shemona Esrei. This is the opening line of the Shemona Esrei. El HaGadol, HaGibor. And as we mentioned many times, what makes God great? You can't bribe him. Lo yisapanim. He doesn't show favoritism. He treats everybody equally. Lo yikach shochad. You can't bribe him. Why does the Torah? Obviously, it means if it can't bribe anybody. Osem mishpat yatom v'amana. God takes special care to do justice for the widow and the orphan. He loves the stranger. That's why we went to Egypt. So we should learn to love strangers. The very simple reason why we were slaves in Egypt is to learn to love the stranger. Treat the stranger nicely, beautifully. Don't impress him because you were strangers. 36 times, the Gemara points out, more than any other concept in the Torah. So, God loves the stranger. That's his greatness. So this is, in and of itself, is like worth the whole price of the shear. Like, this is the unbelievable. And we mentioned before, that's what we say for those at Kiddush Levana, we say it, right? Where we see the greatness of God, you see his humility. The greatness of God is expressed by him taking care of the little person. And this is such an important theme in Judaism, that greatness is worrying about the small things in life. Many people, they like the headlines or whatever, the big deals. The job of a rabbi is to visit the sick and to comfort them. It's a one-on-one. And the rabbi leaders is not it's also both. We mentioned, Rav Soloveitchik mentioned very beautifully, right? Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai, when the Romans gave him three wishes before they destroy, he had three. So everybody knows Tein li Yavna b'Chachameha. let me reestablish Jew. He didn't say it like that, but give me Yavne, save the sages in Yavne. What else did he say? Find a doctor for Rav
Give me a doctor.
Give me a doctor for Rav Tzadok, because Rav Tzadok was fasting for 40 years because he was hoping to avert the decree of destruction of the temple. So Rav Soloveitchik points out, you can save Judaism, that's very nice, but equally important is saving Rav Tzadok. That's just as important. Saving one life is like save the whole world. So often people are so there to the big deal. The small thing is what counts the most. That's what God loves. Oh hey, Mishpat, you can't bribe him. He loves the stranger, and very beautiful. Now I've quoted before, but I think we'll go into a little bit more detail. The amazing Gemara about this we didn't always have. Okay, wasn't always in the Shemona Esrei or whatever. It wasn't always said. Why not? So this is an unbelievable Gemara. I've quoted it before, but I think we'll elaborate a little more. And it's always, I love review, and it's been a while. I find this Gemara just astounding. Okay. Lamanik Rashman Anshe Knesset Agdol. So we spoke a couple of weeks ago. Of course, the Shemona Esrei originates with Anshe Knesset Agdol. We spoke how Shimon Pekuli, the flax maker, he reestablished it. But why are they called Anshe Knesset Agdola? She'exziru atara liyoshna. They returned the crown to its old place, to its glory. Ata Moshe, as we just saw, Moshe came along and he says, Moshe, that's what it says in the Torah. Atir Yirmiyah says, Goyim mekarkarim bechal lo. The non-Jews are dancing in the holy of the temple. Where's the awesomeness of God? God is not awesome. And you just want to see it. It's right here. I just have it here. Here's Yirmiyahu, chapter 32. Osachetz at lalafim. We know this, right? Mishalem avon avot sounds familiar to us. God repays because God is Ha'el, Hagadol, Hagibor. Oh, what happened to Nora? God's not Nora. Yirmiyahu says God is not awesome. If God were awesome, the Babylonians wouldn't be dancing in the temple. Lo Mar Nora. Okay. Daniel's towards the end of the period of the exile. Yirmiyahu witnessed the destruction of the temple earlier. He's 70 years earlier. Goyim mishtapim v'panav. Apparently, in the time of Yirmiyahu, that's what some of the commentaries point out, that that's why each one picked a different thing not to say. The non-Jews weren't being persecuted quite yet, or it wasn't as bad. The Goyim, the non-Jews are mishtapim, like in Egypt, they're making us slaves. Where's the power of God? Lo Mark Gibor, and if you want to see that one, that's right here, Daniel chapter 9. Vepalal Hashem, I'm going to pray to God, Elohai, Vetvadal, admit my vidui, I'll admit my sins, confession. From Ra'an Hashem El Hagadol Hanora. So he said El Hagadol Hanora, but he didn't say Gibor. So that's what the Gemara says. So he didn't say Gibor. Ata Inhu, the Anshe Knesset Agdola, the people of the great assembly said, Adarabba. No, that's how great God is. Koveshet Yitro. Really, the Jewish people deserve to be wiped out. Remember, we learned weeks ago, he discussed that God prays every day. And God prays that his attribute of mercy should overcome his attribute of anger. There's good reason to get angry at the Jewish people. And if God prays, he should hold back his anger. That's obviously it means for us when God prays ridiculous. It means that's what we have to pray for. So God he withheld his inclination, what he should have done to kill the people. Shenotin erechapayim. He lets the wicked. Here it also refers to the non-Jews. Also, he allowed the non-Jews, but it's really both. I mean, probably in the context it's really referring to the non-Jews. Notin erechapayim l'rashaim. Va'enor atav. And ilu heinor. This is his awesomeness. Right. If not for the awesomeness of God, how could Jewish people survive? Impossible. 3,000 years of history, persecution. What nation survives 2,000 years without a land? Impossible. So this is the greatness of God. So they removed it. You're right, it's bad, but instead of looking at the glass as half empty, you may look at the glass as half empty, Yirmiyahu and Daniel. The Anshe Knesset Agdola looked at the glass as half full. And therefore they said it. Of course, the Anshe Knesset Agdola were the people who led the people when they came back to Israel. They're rebuilding. Obviously, it's very different. Yirmiyahu witnessed destruction. He didn't witness rebuilding. The Anshe Knesset Agdola, they were the early Zionists, the settlers of the Second Commonwealth. They witnessed it. So obviously, you're going to have a different approach. This is in itself a very powerful Gemara, but this is not the wild thing. What I found is just unbelievable. Rabbanan, takanta tikun Moshe. How in the world did Yirmiyahu and Daniel have the right to change what Moshe said in the Torah? What a chutzpah! Reformers, like they changed what's in Torah. How could they? They uprooted what Moshe established. Amar Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Lazar says, you know what? Mitoch sheyotim shakadosh baruch hu amiti. God is a God of truth. Chotamo shel hakadosh baruch hu emet. The signature of God is truth. The Talmud says. The fichach lo kisbu. They couldn't tell a lie, and from their perspective, they couldn't speak falsely. There was no awesomeness of God in display during the time of destruction. There was no greatness of God. No awesomeness and no power of God. I'm sorry. This is what I see. Don't tell me God is Gadol Gibor V'Nor when He's not. Look what's happening. The Goyim are dancing around in the temple and they're persecuting us. So I mentioned where I just find this Gemara like unbelievably powerful, and I think for all of us, for those for our generation, the post-Holocaust generation. I imagine there are no survivors here on the class, but I'm sure there are many who are children of survivors. You understand when the Holocaust survivor says he can't say I can't have faith. He can't say God is great. It's exactly what the Yirmiyahu did. Exactly what Daniel did.
What's the reference?
The reference is Yuma 69b, I think it is, right? Let me just double check. I think it's 69, or is it 69a? Let me just double check. It's 69. No, what is it here? I'm pretty sure it's 69a. And yeah, oh no, it's 69b. I'm glad I checked. If you go to Sefaria, or if you go to Google, type in Yuma 69b, Sefaria should show up, and it's paragraph basically 14. Our discussion, we get paragraph 14, 15, and 16. But anyway, so I said it. I'm sorry?
Excuse me, but couldn't we apply that same idea to that paragraph we say on Tisha B'Av?
Yeah, what, on Nachem?
Yeah.
Yeah, correct. I don't say it. 100% right. Rav Lichtenstein said you can't say it like that. Rav Goren changed it. Absolutely. I say Nachem, but I don't say there's nobody living when there's 700,000 Jews in Jerusalem. I do not say it here.
That it's destroyed.
That's exactly correct. Right, I don't say it. Right. Here, Shaita Bezuya, should we pray for its welfare? Yeah, in the plans. Absolutely. Of course not. That's exactly, even though Rav Soloveitchik refused to change it, because Rav Soloveitchik was a small C conservative rabbi. He was very conservative. We discussed many times. He didn't say Tfilah Shalom Hallelujah, all these things, all these innovation that we do. I mentioned last week, Anshe Knesset Agdola, Ubahem Kama Nevi'im. And included in the Anshe Knesset Agdola, making Shmonetzah were some prophets. And Rabbi Soloveitchik focused on that expression, Be'em Kama Nevi'im, to say that without prophets, only prophets can introduce new prayers. So Rav Soloveitchik didn't say the keynote that every shul says for the Holocaust, that the Belzer Rebbe went one, and the Bavova Rebbe, and the rabbi from England, some beautiful keynote. But that's not what we don't do what Rav Soloveitchik did. Soloveitchik did. We're not his Hasidim, and he was our great leader. But that was his approach, and it's not accepted. I don't think. And Rav Lichtenstein, I did not hear it from Rav Lichtenstein personally, but I know from other people. How can you say? Of course, Rav Lichtenstein lived in Israel and Rav Soloveitchik lived in America. It's the same thing. When you live somewhere, you see it with your own eyes. You can't. Right. I told you the story. Like said my friend, unfortunately, who passed away, Michael Levenstein, my dear friend, who unfortunately their son was killed in Gaza. Their youngest son was killed in Gaza tragically, and back in October. But so when I was visiting him a number of years ago, and he was driving me back on Friday afternoon, he was living in Ramot, So I was like Friday afternoon, 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, got caught in the traffic jam. I said, oh my God, traffic, that's ridiculous. Traffic jam, And he turned to me and said, what would the Ramban do to get caught in the traffic jam? The Ramban arrives in Israel, 1267. There's no minyan in Jerusalem. What the Ramban complained if there was a traffic jam in Jerusalem. So I said, that's why you live in Israel and I live in Toronto. I mean, that's it. There you go. That's hit the nail on the head. So, it's all perspective. It's all perspective, how you see. So that's correct. I don't say it's nachem. I don't think it's proper. The Gemara said that God wanted to make Chizkiyahu the Mashiach, but he didn't thank God. He didn't lo Marshira. He didn't say Hallel. That's a question. Yom Ha'atzmaut is saying Hallel. It's the same idea. He was saved from Sancheriv, was going to wipe them out. The power of the world is Syrians. And miraculously, he was saved. And he didn't express his gratitude. We go on like it's like Hey Year is a normal day. It's not a normal day. So I actually,
Now,
want to say something. Yeah.
if I can take just a personal thing to connect to that. When I lived in Israel for a year once on a sabbatical, I was driving in the car and I heard that there is Omes Tnu'ah at Kibbutz Galiot, Mechlaf Kibbutz Galiot. And I said to my husband, isn't that wonderful? Right. There is too much, and it's called Kibbutz Galiot. And my husband looked at me and said, you must probably the only person who is happy that there is a backup.
Right.
Kibbutz
if you have to drive it every day, I don't know if my friend Michael would say that every single day when he got caught in a traffic jam. I'm not sure he said that every day. But you understand, obviously, they're building their own new roads. Obviously, you want the city to function. Of course, that's, but it is, we have to put it in perspective. I actually quoted this, it's coming out, I put out, I have this week's, it's even under 9 minutes, my 10-minute Parsha podcast, but I just recorded it. I meant to record it last week, but my voice was so bad. I couldn't record it. Now my voice is not fully recovered, but okay, how long can I wait? So I recorded it the other night, but it'll probably take till Sunday, Monday. It's a lot of work has to go from whatever. So I went through the whole, I got in an hour and 45 minutes. Never want to do just like quickly some points here and there. So I mentioned this where we say in Behishamda, V'akadosh Baruch Hu matzilenu miyadam, and God saves us. So I said, you know what? There's some people who probably can't say that. Maybe even now with the war in Gaza, like, I get it. Like if somebody says they don't want to say V'hishamda, like it's not like we don't say the words in the Siddur because they're printed in the Siddur. We say the words because we believe them. We believe what we're saying. It's like Rav Schechter told us. I wouldn't say this, but Rav Schechter, years ago, I forget his name, but even if I remembered his name, I wouldn't say it because he's actually been to a couple classes on Torah and Motion on Zoom. Very prominent rabbi in California. A conservative shul 20 years ago got up in shul and he says he's not sure, the scholarly debate, there's no evidence of Jews in the desert, 2 million Jews. He's not 100% sure the Exodus happened. He didn't say it didn't happen. I think he's not sure, but he said it doesn't matter. Who cares? We have things like that in our tradition. It's a metaphor. Who cares? The message, the being next to strangers is important. So that speech made it to the front page of the New York Times. That's pretty impressive. A rabbi gives a speech in shul, and it makes it the front page of the New York Times. He's a very prominent rabbi, very big shul, and the Exodus didn't happen. My gosh, maybe. So I remember Rav Schechter quoting, said, well, if you don't believe the Exodus happened, you should eat chametz. So I wouldn't say that. I can't say that. It's like, maybe on a certain level, I do what you do, what you believe in, we'll work that out later. Just do the mitzvah, but to say something that there's one thing to eat matzah, even though I don't believe we left in a hurry. There's another thing to say we left in a hurry if I don't believe. I don't know. But the Siddur, that's what Yirmiyahu and that's what the Gemara says. Yirmiyahu, God is a God of truth. I cannot say I'm witnessing destruction. Don't tell me to say that God is Norah. I mean, it's really heretical. I mean, if the Gemara wouldn't have said that. It's unbelievable. The heresy, they changed Moshe Rabbeinu. What do you mean God is not awesome? What, you don't believe in God? I only know what my eyes see. And my eyes, Ein lecha en the dayan elam mashein abroad. And so I'm taking that slightly out of context, but there's halacha. The dayan, the judge, only can judge based on what he sees. Don't tell me if the judges are the one. Okay. So I don't want to mention who died yesterday, but talking about misjudgment. I had no idea this morning. I'm listening on the radio, and the host in the radio in here in Toronto, CFRB, said, apparently one of the juries said, I had no idea. I didn't know this. One of the juries said they didn't go through the evidence. There were a lot of blacks, I guess, in the jury. They wanted to get back on all the oppression for the blacks, so they just wanted to acquit him. I said, oh my God, I never knew that. I mean, I knew that it was true because everybody knows he was guilty, but I didn't know that mamash, the jurors admitted it. But okay, let's not go there. So they couldn't say it. So I said the same thing. A Holocaust survivor sitting there. He doesn't believe HaKadosh Baruch Hu Matzilenu Miyadam. Ultimately, we believe it will happen, but I don't expect a Holocaust survivor to say that. And often when they say it, they don't pay attention. It's like Reb Gilad once said, I mentioned on Shalos Ani Isha, we discussed that way back when. So he said, no, that's another bracha I won't pay attention to. I'll say it, I don't really mean it, whatever. But okay, he said it as a joke, but every joke has a little bit of seriousness to it. But anyways, that's an unbelievably powerful Gemara, and it's very important. But we do say Ha'el HaGadol. We always are optimists. We look at the positive. Now, just a little cute question that I saw last night. So why we call the Anshe Knesset Hagdolah? We should be called the Anshe Knesset Hagvura, or the Anshe Knesset Hanora or Hagvura. They left in Gdolah. The Anshe Knesset Hagdolah because they returned the Gvura and the Gibor to its original glory, the God's original glory. So they're called the great. But no, they should be called the Anshe Knesset Hagvura. What's Hagibor v'Hanora. Anshe Knesset Hagibor v'Hanora. Why don't we call them that? It's a cute question. Of course, it doesn't really bother me, but it's a cute question that. So the commentaries that I saw say, well, no, Gedula, Gibor v'Hanora is a description of Gedula. God is Gadol, is great. How is he great? Through Gvura and Norah. So Gedolah, in other words, when they removed Norah and Gvura, they were removing Gedolah too. They took away from the Gedolah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu by not saying Norah. So that's why we call them you still call them the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah.
Rabbi,
Yes.
The teacher until motion, so I forget his name. You'll be able to tell me. He's the one that taught about Rabbi Cook from Israel.
Yeah. So that's Arishwat, I think.
So
University. We had two, right?
tell me, he said something beautiful about Otto Gibor that I still love. He said, if you look about Giborim in most cultures, they define as strength and power. But how do we define Gibor?
Right. It's right there. Right. If you notice Gemara, if you notice here, right, we say in Pirkei Avot, Ezu HaGibor HaKovesh et Yitro. So it's right here, right? We say, what's the greatness of God? Adrab Azu Gvurato HaKovesh et Yitro. Ezu HaGibor. Here it is, right here. Here's Pirkei Avot. Pirkei Avot is earlier, right? This is, but this is what that God, right? We said when we back in Birkat Ashachar, the difference between Koach and Gvura. Koach is physical strength. One who is tired needs physical strength. Ozer Yisrael B'Gvura, he girds his Gvura is spiritual strength. Ezu HaGibor HaKovesh et Yitro. Correct. But when they were saying it, that's exactly the point that the Gemara, that Shekhinah is saying. Yirmiyahu says Gvura. Oh, there's no Gvura. They mean the physical strength. Well, where's God? The doing his, physical, letting the Jews being all persecuted. And they say, no, God lets the wicked prosper. He sometimes, and also it doesn't, alluding to, I thought, that he doesn't take his complete anger out on the Jewish people. God prays that the attribute of mercy will be greater. So that's But anyways, this is so. What do we do? Okay, so it's getting late. Just to review a little bit. It's a good place to stop. We see Eloheinu, one line of the Gemara. We see already all the psukim in the Chumash. Elohei Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. Right? Why that's where that expression comes from, the discussion when what Moshe is to tell the Jewish people, and we copy that expression exactly, which is why we don't say Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah. Here we talked about El Gadol Gibor Vanara, of course, comes from Moshe Rabbeinu, the emendations by Yirmiyahu and Daniel, and the restoration by Anshe Knesset Agol, because God is a God of truth, and you can only tell from what you see. I don't exactly know how to apply it in every situation, but it's you can discuss with your rabbi, whatever. But it's really quite a powerful idea. Of course, we discussed Habinenu, the idea of saying short and Shimon Esrei, and the ability to concentrate and not to concentrate. But that was a very common idea that the Mishnah says, according to many of the rabbis, that's what we are supposed to be doing when we when we instead of saying the entire Shimon Esrei every day. Okay, just let me see if there's any questions here. Okay, I'm happy to give a class in Erev Pesach if if 3 people commit to coming. I'm happy to give a class. So 2 more. Okay. I mean, I'll do it something different. What I'll do on that. I think we did do it the last couple of years. Is there any posting that says if you can't concentrate because you are distracted by everything matters? Absolutely. You should not daven. That's what it says in the Shulchan Aruch. The question is there any posting today who says that? I'm not sure. The Shulchan Aruch rules you should not daven if you can't concentrate. So the Mishnah Berurah, he was like, whoa. Then I make that daven for 6 months. Like I got Rosh Hashanah, I can concentrate. So it's that same thing we discussed since we don't concentrate anyways. That's why we don't say. But the real halacha, just like the real halacha is whatever the pure halacha is, you cannot daven if you're not focused. And here, I'll just show you one other piece that I was going to show earlier. I'll show it now. Fine. And it's the Mishnah and the 5th parak in Brachot, so relatively well-known Mishnah. But the Gemara expands on this. You have to have a heavy head. You have to have down a little. Like, kalut rush is levity and frivolity. Kovet rush is seriousness. You cannot daven unless you have very into yira, ema, pachad. It's next to impossible for most of us to ever reach that level. And the Mishnah, the Hasidim, they used to wait an hour. Who today has 3 hours before Shai? They're going to wait an hour before. So even if an hour doesn't mean it literally. Okay, it doesn't mean it literally. But still, it sounds like they waited a long time before they daven. You can't just walk in at the middle of your break at mincha. You're in the middle of a client and you go daven mincha for 10 minutes. You expect to have kavana. Can't roll out of bed and come to shul at Rabbi Yishmael and rip on your tefillin. Oh my God, I'm going to have kavana to makom. You got to get to shul an hour early. So Rav Soloveitchik, I heard of his name. I imagine others say it too. Rav Soloveitchik said that's the origins of Psukei Zimra. That's what Psukei Zimra is all about, to put us in the mood to daven. What are they going to do? What, they sat there for an hour, twiddling their thumbs. They sat there for an hour, I don't know, saying Tehillim to get in the mood. So it's really, really hard. Davening, I said, is one of the hardest mitzvot, and if you daven 2-3 times, I daven all year, so I can daven with Kavanah on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. If you only come to Shul Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, you won't be able to daven with Kavanah. If you daven all year, so hopefully Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, Sarah to make tshuva, you can get inspired a little bit. I'm talking once in a while. I mean, I try. I think I actually think my davening improved a lot since COVID. Since COVID, it's improved a lot. I more slowly. I concentrate on the word. This year has went my davening from like a 0 to like a 9, like zoomed up. This will really improve my davening. So thank you again. And whatever, but it is really hard. And the Shulchan Aruch says, don't daven if you can't concentrate. Okay, we're not on that level. We would never daven. So in practice, I would assume that's, by the way, one of the reasons an onen doesn't daven. I mean, that we still do. An onen doesn't daven. We don't say he should daven today. Is there a point that someone has reached so much that a posting would say you should? I imagine there is. these are the type of things when you read your books, that's why you need a rabbi. You can't just read the books in English because they have all the stringencies. Go to rabbi privately. I'm sure someone has mental health issues. He's going through a depression. So it's probably doesn't have to daven 3 times a day. Like probably like a great rabbi would say, no, you have other things to worry about. Like you got the 5th Chalik of Shulchan Aruch. So, and we can go back. I'm relying on Rav Yosef Karo that I don't daven, like not the end of the world. Like I'm not following the Mishnah Berurah. I'm relying on Rav Yosef Karo. So yes, that I would think so. I don't know when, what, who. 1997 edition of Koran Siddur has Avinenu, but the newer Siddur Shalem doesn't have it. It's complete, but it's incomplete. That's nice, right? Okay. All right. Yeah, I don't see it in Koran. I don't think Art Scroll has it either. I guess they want it removed. If you put it in, people might say it. What you put in the Siddur? Do you put Tefillah L'Shlomo Medina? Art Scroll didn't put it in. Then they put in the RC. Obviously, do you put in the new RCA Siddurs? All the stuff when a girl is born, Zevet Bad, and all these how to do Birchat Hamazon if there are 3 women doing Birchat Hamazon. That's what the Art Scroll Siddur is not going to put. How to put 3 in the regular Siddur? Everybody. The Siddur represents their what they believe in, their Ashkafa. There's a play God on Trial, which takes place in a concentration camp. God put on trial, and I assume they found him guilty. I would hope they found God guilty. That's okay. Rav Levi Yitzchak did ship that he would always find God guilty. Right? He liked when Rosh Hashanah fell on Shabbos, like this year. No, yeah, like this. No, not this year. Like last year. Because God can't write. It's pikuach. You can only write on Shabbos if to save a life. So he said, God, you can only write people in the book of life. It's Rosh Hashanah, it's on Shabbos. It's pikuach nefesh. So you can put the Jews to life, but you can't put the Jews in death. Okay, this is a very cute, beautiful story. Yes, but the idea that what do you think, Avram? It's God. God, you're unjust. You're going to destroy the wicked and evil. So then Avram said, okay, who am I? I'm dust and ashes. But then he continued. He didn't stop. There's a long tradition of arguing with God, but with respect. In other words, we have, bottom line is at the end of the day, we have to accept God. If it makes you to argue with God, become a non-believer, that's not good. But I understand why people I understand why a Holocaust survivor, we discuss this as a non-believer. I cannot criticize I don't criticize anybody today that's what the Chazon Ish said. We don't criticize anybody that's a non-religious Jew. The Chazon Ish was not the modern Orthodox rabbi. The Chazon Ish said in the 1950s, all Jews today are Tinokot Shenishba, because even if they grew up in a religious home, even if they grow up in a religious home, become non-religious, they don't have the status of a rebel, because we live in a non-religious type of a society, the influences. So we expect people to become non-religious. People who remain religious are amazing. Those are the attitudes we need. So I don't blame anybody, but yeah, we can argue with God. Okay, thank you very much. Hope we'll see you all Sunday morning at 9:15 till 2 p.m. 9 speakers. It should be a wonderful program. And then all next week, every day, 1 o'clock, Tuesday, 2 shiurim. Next week, I'll do the Haggadah. We will have our regular Parshat Shavuot shiur. There'll be also this week. I think that'll be the only sort of and Mark Shapiro will have his regular class on the Mussar dispute on Monday night. So 2 of our quote non-Pesach shiurim, and then a bunch on Pesach. Okay, everybody. Shabbat shalom. Be well. Thank you very much.
Shabbat shalom.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Shabbat shalom and Chag Sameach Kasher.
Okay, very
Shabbat
good. Thank you. We're putting the Sameach before Kasher. Right, we have to worry more about the Sameach.
Very important.
Correct.
Very important.
Sameach. The problem that people worry about too much Kasher. It's not. Anyways, okay. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Be well. Thank you.